Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Sports Dungeon. I told you the man with all the info is here, because it sure ain't me. All I do is get to talk, blow off a little steam, act like I know something. I usually don't know much. I'm just a big old blowhard at times, ain't I? But that's all right. Brandon Cohn from the Harrison Daily Times.
Hey,
Brandon,
Loren.
it's great to see you.
Good to see you,
You've
buddy.
been here every time we got the season starting. We kind of bring you in here, let you talk a little bit. We'll do the same thing when basketball season starts because it'll be here before we know it.
It's coming quick.
October 15th for the smaller schools. They'll be here before we know it, and then November 15th for the bigger ones.
Yeah.
And it's hard to believe that we're already talking about that a little bit, but we were talking about that before we went on camera here. But we're not here to talk basketball. We're here to talk about the oblong ball, the brown one that goes in the air, and that's football. Hey, all right. You and I, we've been around the town. Let's kind of we'll save the Goblins here for a little bit. Let's talk about the other schools first. Let's start with Yellville Summit and Calvin Mallet.
Okay.
What's your take on the Panthers over there in Yellville?
You know, the Panthers have kind of had a hard time this summer. They've lost 3 of their starters from last year. They're not going to have them back this year for various reasons, and that's kind of put them looking to their youth. But they do have a big junior high team coming up that should be very talented and should be a big asset to that team. And I think that they will still have a pretty legitimate chance at winning some games.
Well, in Yellville's case, the heir apparent to the quarterback was where the issue. You know, Calvin went back and changed from his old running the ball to he went to a spread offense when he last year's Hoyt. You know, to kind of direct things, and he was expecting this young man to step in and take over. Unfortunately, he didn't come out for football for whatever reason, and that's kind of thrown a monkey wrench into what's going on here. So the indications are he's going back to the running game. Is that kind of the indication? I didn't go over and see the game. I need to go over and try to check out some Yellville's stuff and talk a little more with them.
Just talking about the 7-on-7 I saw them play this summer. It looks like they're still going to try and use some passing, but I think that they are, like you said, probably going to go back to mostly the running game, and they've got the size to do it well.
Well, I mean, Calvin's boy. I mean, he's only a sophomore coming up. You know, last year as a freshman playing ninth grade, and whether you want to talk basketball, football, he was a man among boys. I mean, just in his size. Stepping him up to play high school football and putting him on the line to add to that huge line that they already had at Yellville was going to make it. It's going to hide some of the inexperience at quarterback a whole lot easier when you can just hand it off to the tailback and say, "Here, can you get me 4 yards?"
Yeah, and they even have another sophomore bigger than him. So I mean, they've got the size this year. They're probably the biggest football team we have here in our area.
Isn't that scary for being a 3A school that being the biggest? I mean, the biggest team. I think they'll do well. As I've always said, though, you got to be able to stop somebody. You know, and you know, last year I don't want to bring up some past history, but you know, they had the tragedy over the tragedy over in Yellville with the death. Because I thought last year's team had a chance. I really did think that they and they were progressing well, and all of a sudden, you know, the death caused a huge problem with them, and then they kind of went through a low period, which fully is expected. I mean, fully expected. Then they got caught up in the Lamar thing, who they were going to play during the playoffs, which created a whole nother situation. And I thought Yellville turned it all around and put it all together by the end of the season with all the.
Like you said, they still got there. They got to the postseason, and I think they'll have another shot this year. You know, there's a lot of question marks right now with that new 3A1 that they've been thrust into, along with Green Forest, Marshall, Westport, Greenland, and some other schools that we don't traditionally see in some of these past few football seasons. So they've got some power coming in, and Westport and Greenland already are pegged as the 1 and 2 in that conference. So Yellville will, you know, they'll have a shot to get in there about number 4, and I think they'll have a shot going back to the playoffs.
All right. Changing gears, we'll stay in that conference with the Marshall Bobcats down there.
Marshall's going to be improved this year. Once again, they, you know, kind of like Yellville, they have a good good junior high team coming up to the high school, and I think that those players will just add a little bit more depth to what they have, and they still have some talented players from last year. Mason Millsap, Jared Barrett, who are coming back and will be playing for them again this year.
I don't see any magic of 2 years ago when they went 10-1 and it was a phenomenal year. Came out of nowhere. I mean, after not winning a game the season before, coming back and having an incredible season was phenomenal.
Yeah, that was. I was just talking about that with somebody the other day, and it's something nobody saw coming, and all of a sudden they beat Harding Academy.
Yes.
And it's, so I mean, Marshall's one of those schools that they could very well do that again because nobody expected it that year. So you never know.
Let's move over to Carroll County real quick. We'll take on the Green Forest and Berryville. We got to see Green Forest during the scrimmage game last week over at the FS Garrison Stadium. They took on Batesville and Harrison a little bit in a 12-play each type scrimmage. Impressed. They were able to move the ball a little bit better, more than I thought. They didn't look as big as Batesville, understanding so, but they did do some things right that I thought, and I think they could be a surprise.
They've got some talented players in David Biaz, Rios, and Tanner Marr, and I think that those are going to be three of their go-to players that'll help them make some good things happen. If they can just stay in and play some smart football and cut down their turnovers, I think that they'll be able to compete with anybody in their conference.
And they showed that at the scrimmage game. Now, obviously, it's a scrimmage. It's a scripted. It's 12 plays. It's not a true game. It's not 4 quarters of football. But they did show some promise and things that we have not seen in the past of Green Forest.
Yeah. I agree with that, and Jay Martin has came in and taken over the team from Bill Gatto, and Jay's been working with Bill. I mean, he knows what these kids have been doing, and he's going to move right in, and it's going to be a seamless transition, and this is going to be one of those places where, you're not going to see any bumps in the road from a coaching change.
Okay. Looking forward, looking ahead, the other team in Carroll County, Berryville, the Berryville Bobcats. Looking forward to the Berryville Green Forest game, always. What do you see over there in Berryville?
Berryville, they've got some pretty good-looking athletic kids. I have not got to see them play any this summer. Got to see them do a little bit of 7-on-7 over at Harrison, but really right now they're kind of a question mark. They also have a new coach in Eric Daniel, and just from what I've seen him interacting with the players, he's very structured. He's going to give the kids a lot of discipline, and that's a good place to start with the football team.
Yeah. Well, now it's time to put up or shut up. We're going to talk about where we think. We talked about the new conferences. West Fork and them is probably the 1-2 in the conference, so that's going to leave you 3-4, and this year 5. So there's actually. So that's a kind of a nice little deal. They're going to get 5 out of this conference for this year, which is one of the things that Yellville took advantage of a year ago.
Yeah.
So they're picking up this advantage again. Now, what do I see? Do I see all 3? Do I see 3 of those teams being 3, 4, 5? Probably not. I think 2 of the 3, and I think you could just throw your hat up and say any of those 2 of the 3 could be in there, and that'd be between Marshall, Green Forest, and Yellville Summit.
Right now, just going on, just pure opinion out there of what we've seen from last year. I believe it'll probably our best choices are probably going to be Yellville and Green Forest, and I think Marshall. Until we see them on the field a couple times and we see what happens, we've got to just kind of leave them out of the hunt for the moment.
But I think that Marshall has proven over the last few years they have athletes down in Marshall and Searcy County. I mean they do a wonderful job down there with limited numbers. Last year. They were struggling with numbers, trying to just have a minimum number of players. This year, they got more than enough to play. I think that they're going to be a little bit better. I think it's going to be a huge toss-up. But I think two local teams in that conference are going to be playing at least an extra week in the state playoffs.
And this is the conference they're in this year is a much better conference than the one they were in last year. And it's kind of hard to say when you think about Atkins and Perryville and some of those powerhouse schools, but I mean Greenland, West Fork are going to be the ones to watch in this conference.
That's some pretty good powerful. I don't see Berryville making only because of first year coach. Some things that's different over there in the 4A. You still got to play Shiloh.
Yeah.
I mean I don't.
You got Gravette, Farmington, Gentry. Prairie Grove, those are all, at times have been really good football teams. So
and no offense to Berryville because last spring in their baseball program, they were playing a lot of freshmen. They've got athletes over there.
They do have.
I just think it's a developmental time, and when you have a transition at, unlike Green Forest, where they're stepping in and continuing a program, Berryville's brought something new in, trying to do something different and go from there.
Yeah. So I mean, I think you're right. It'll be probably a couple years before we really see Berryville's potential start to come out, and their younger kids are going to be athletes, and I think that's where we'll see them really start to blossom.
That'll work. Well, we're going to take a short break. We come back, we're going to talk about the Goblins, and we're going to mention the Bombers as well. We'll be right back.